Tonight's episode of America's Hometown Horror is brought to you by our friends at Fangoria Magazine. That's right, the first name in fright since 1979 is now an affiliate of America's Hometown Horror. And because of that, we can now offer you an exclusive 20% discount on any first-time magazine subscription or merchandise purchase by heading over to shop.fangoria.com and using the code HometownHorrorPod at checkout. That's shop.fangoria.com/HometownHorrorPod, or just use the code HometownHorrorPod at checkout for that exclusive discount on anything from Fangoria. Tonight's episode of America's Hometown Horror is also brought to you by our friends at Horror Facts Magazine. Never heard of Horror Facts Magazine? Well, if you're a horror fan, they're a name that you absolutely should know. You can find them over at horrorfacts.com, and they're a great resource for all things horror, including news, reviews, editorials, and lots of other horror podcasts, not only limited to, but including America's Hometown Horror. So head on over to horrorfacts.com and check them out. Last but certainly not least, if you want to support America's Hometown Horror directly, I would highly recommend you get yourself some tickets to the Hometown Haunts and Hops Horror Convention, which will be taking place at Mayflower Brewing Company in lovely Plymouth, Massachusetts for the first time on October 28th of this year. Yes, that's right, folks, the Saturday before Halloween. We're partnering with our friends over at Inebriart to put this event on, and you can buy yourself some tickets by going to inebriart.com, go to their events page, pull up their October calendar, and get yourself some $5 tickets to the Hometown Haunts and Hops Horror Convention, which is now sponsored by HalloweenNewEngland.com. HalloweenNewEngland.com is the website for the truly Halloween-obsessed, with the most extensive guides to New England haunted houses, ghost tours, classic horror film screenings, jack-o'-lantern festivals, haunted hayrides, and more. They've got all the thrills covered throughout September and October. With over 2,500 Halloween events on their events calendar and hundreds of local Halloween attractions, it's the only place you'll find everything from haunted history tours and costume contests to witch haunts are open on a Thursday night. No matter what you're looking for this Halloween season, HalloweenNewEngland.com has you covered, and we are thrilled to be partnering with them. Now, let's get on with the show.
What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of America's Hometown Horror. If I sound different, that's because I am not Mike. I am Matt. I'm going to be driving the honorary horror podcast bus tonight. Real quick, I just want to say, if you've noticed the new ad at the beginning and the new music, that is thanks to Sean O'Laughlin at Skywheel Media. He is doing all of our sound and our editing production. So thank you, Sean. If you have a podcast that you're looking to kind of bump up to the next level, hit them up. Skywheel Media. Social media, real quick. We're at ahpod.com. That's ahhpod.com. YouTube, Facebook, Twitter at Hometown Horror, Insta at Hometown Horror Pod. And you can always email us at hometownhorrorpodcast@gmail.com if you want to send us some comments, some hate mail, anything like that. We are going to hop right into this thing. So again, this is Matt. I'm joined with Andrew tonight.
What's up, buddy?
We have a special guest. That is our buddy, Justin McLaughlin. How we doing, buddy?
Doing great, guys. Excited to be here.
Yes, sir.
It's almost been 1 year since our last one.
Yeah, when we did Event Horizon.
Yes, sir.
Yep. Andrew, were you there for that one too?
I was, yes.
Okay.
Pretty sure I was. I remember talking about Event Horizon. It's one of my favorites, so I definitely think I was for that one.
Yeah, you were there. I think Kat was the only person missing.
Oh, that's right. Okay, I knew somebody.
Oh, yeah, because that makes sense.
Alrighty. So, well, let's kick it off. News-wise, I know we got me and Mike are doing our next via at Mayflower Brewing Company in Plymouth on the 19th. That's going to be probably today if you're listening today. Maybe I forget when this one's supposed to come out, if it's going to come out on Thursday or not. But you know, we had The Exorcist, Believer, and Saw both come out and hit $40 million box office marks right off the rip opening weekend. Some would say that's good. Some might say that's not good. But hey, what are you going to do? You know. Other than that, I think we can jump right into watch list stuff unless any of you guys have any tidbits of news. I'm not sure I have any big news stuff today.
I just watched a new trailer for it was a Red Band trailer for this movie called Squealer.
Okay.
A Lionsgate film about a serial killer. Look, all right. It looks like it could be very cheesy though, so I'm not too sure.
Squealer?
Yeah, it's called Squealer. They just released the Red Band trailer today.
All right.
The Lionsgate movie, so we'll see how good it is. I mean, I feel like those are all hit or miss, but it didn't look terrible, but it did look like it definitely had plenty of cheese. So,
plenty of cheese.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Extra mozz.
So the budget for Saw was $13 million, and the budget for Exorcist Believer was $30 million.
Yeah, and they both fucking
Yeah. So Saw at least is turning like a pretty like decent profit on that one. I just had to Google that real quick because I was curious.
I'm going to talk about those in a minute when we do watch list stuff.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think didn't Saw already surpass Spiral?
Yeah,
Box
I
office?
just read that. Yeah.
Saw's been out for an extra week too.
Oh, okay.
So Exorcist did hit faster. But yeah, all right. So let's move on. Justin, we're gonna have you got some stuff you want to talk about? Any watch list stuff to kick off October, buddy?
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, let me just bring up my notes on my phone real quick. But so obviously, Matt, as you know, we try to do 31 for 31 every year. I actually mentioned that in the last podcast I was featured on too, that we weren't really able to. This year's going really smooth though. So
good.
The past 9 days, going on 10 days now, have been jam packed. So kind of just rip through the list real quick. Some of them are just staples, like Ghostbusters. I watch that every October. I love that movie. But Knock at the Cabin was a surprise. M. Night Shyamalan's super hit or miss for me.
Okay.
I'm in the camp of I really like Split and Glass and Unbreakable a lot, but I know that they're a little polarizing. But Knock at the Cabin I liked a ton. Again, just out of left field for him. Then there's a new show on Netflix that's kind of like a documentary style called Encounters, about a town in Texas that the entire town sees the same UFO on the same night, and they're all just coming forward and like telling people about it. And it's just about like the uproar that it caused and like how it was kind of ruining people's lives, like for coming forward. And that they're still all, yeah, it's real.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I liked it a lot. It's just, again, it kind of falls in this whole vibe right now. So if you haven't watched it yet, again, it's on Netflix. I think it's only like 6 episodes. They're all about a little over an hour long, I think.
Okay, that's a good little watch.
Yeah, I've been meaning to watch that.
It's good. Again, we just finished the first episode, but I'm gonna keep going. I liked it a lot. And then I got Peacock because that list that they put out for this month is bananas. I mean, my God, Peacock has like every horror movie right now.
Yeah, they went hard.
And one I was really looking forward to seeing on there was Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey. And I liked it a lot, actually.
Yeah.
Like, again, it's a campy, fun like slasher movie, and just seeing like a very aggressive Pooh and Piglet just wreaking havoc in the 100-acre wood. I grew up, again, big Winnie the Pooh kid, so I was like, I don't know, it was just cool to see. I'm looking forward to the second one, but I'm just confused where like Rabbit and Owl are, because they reference them multiple times in the movie.
Yeah,
they gotta be somewhere.
Yeah, I hope they bring them into play. For the next
I guess
one.
They're supposed to like unleash more characters into this next one. And I think the next one's gonna have a better budget.
Like Tigger has already been revealed on like IGN, like a first look.
Yeah,
he looks sweet, but like, who knows? We'll see what's going on. Rewatched The Thing. Actually, another thing we watched the other night was Signs, just because I had just listened to the podcast episode, and I was like, man, it's been a super long time since I watched that movie. That movie holds up.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Like, again, not the scariest movie in the world, but there's some pretty effective scares in that movie. Like, again, like you guys have already covered it. If you guys haven't seen Signs, sorry about this, but when they're all hiding out in the basement and the arm comes through the like the air shaft there, that's pretty good. That one got me.
I think it's the panic and the fear that, like, you know what I mean. It does a good job of kind of capturing, because they're just isolated, like wherever they are on this farm.
100%. I thought you guys did a pretty good job about talking about the fact that this came out like post 9/11, so it hit extra hard of like even rural America being like, they're coming to get me. And I was like, so we watched Shaun of the Dead last night. Love that movie. Again, every October we throw that one on. Just, good time. But one that was the biggest surprise for me so far, even more so than Knock at the Cabin and how much I actually really liked Blood and Honey, was The Boogeyman.
Okay. I haven't seen this one yet.
So the ad for that played during the Super Bowl. I think that's a Stephen King short story.
Yep.
But that movie's on Hulu right now. And for what was leaning towards like a teen horror movie, that movie rules.
Yeah.
It's like a really good monster flick. It's like, again, nothing too scary, but it almost feels more like a sci-fi movie than anything. But
like
I like
Channel.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, like a science fiction,
Okay.
like sci-fi horror. Not because of like what's going on. It just, I don't know. I got that vibe from it where I was like, no, this is too scary, but it's like it packs a little bit of a like action vibe, I guess, to it, which I didn't expect whatsoever. But it's only like an hour and 20 minutes long, and it's on Hulu.
Yeah.
So I recommend watching it because there is some good parts to it for sure. And the chick that plays young Natalie from Yellow Jackets,
Yeah,
she is the lead.
Right? Yeah.
And she's awesome. And then I forget who her younger sister plays in that movie, but she's been in a bunch of stuff too. And they're both really good in for like younger, actresses, kind of like taking the torch there. But that, besides the topic of the night, that's everything so far. Oh,
sweet. Yeah,
Reanimator for the first time.
Ooh,
yeah,
that movie's great.
Yeah,
I love.
I just watched that for the first time, and I was pleasantly surprised with that.
We were on our way back from vacation. We listened to that episode when it dropped, me and Audra, and we were like, "Oh, we should probably watch this movie." And it took us a little bit to get around to, and then when we finally did, we were like, "Whoa!" We're like, "Whoa, okay, this is awesome." So
yeah, that movie kicks ass. That is like that movie encompasses everything that is 80s horror, in my opinion.
Oh, 100%.
That's like a top 5.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, it was really good. But that's it.
That's a solid little watch list, bud.
Thanks.
Not at all.
Hell yeah. I'll go next. I have a few. Definitely nothing as extensive as last week. So I did do a movie theater double feature Friday night. I went and saw X, and I saw Exorcist Believer back to back. Long afternoon for sure. Saw X is brutal. Definitely better than Spiral. It's actually a prequel to the first one, which I didn't really know until I started watching it. So the whole setup for it is it's pretty long. It's like almost a 2-hour movie. It's just shy of 2 hours, but the whole setup is pretty fucked up. There's a lot to it, but it deals with John Kramer, who is Jigsaw, and like his whole ordeal, and how he kind of really gets kicked into gear with setting up all these traps and stuff like that. It's pretty interesting. But it is fucking gnarly. The effects are great. I think look like all practical effects, and it is grisly as hell. Exorcist Believer got some pretty not great reviews. I'm seeing people call it one of the worst movies ever made. I didn't think it was that bad. It was definitely kind of corny, but I think that it had plenty of scary parts to it as well, or at least like a good tension. The makeup effects were great. The 2 little girls are pretty fucking scary looking. So, but again, it was definitely like legacy sequel. It was predictable. It was, for the most part, there was parts that did surprise me towards the end, but it was definitely Ellen Burstyn being in it was not it. That was. It was really like fucking corny. So I can see, and it's just like, I think the issue is that the original Exorcist is such a renowned classic, and it's held to such a high standard in terms of horror movies in general, that to do something like this was just like, it felt like blasphemous, and just, it's just like the idea of it, I definitely was never on board with, but I had to see it anyway. I checked out VHS 85. That's on Shudder. If you like the other VHS movies, you're definitely going to like this one. It actually has 2 stories that connect to each other, which I don't know if they've done before. Off the top of my head, I can't remember. But they're fucking rad. They're 2 of the best ones in the whole thing. I thought it was fun. It's not the craziest one or like the scariest, but it holds up. There's only really one part of it that I kind of was like not really into. But other than that, everything else was good. And then I did Sometimes They Come Back, which is a Stephen King short story movie. I love Stephen King movies in October. I think there's something about them that is all equally, like there's just this vibe that is very fall October-y, and they're all corny TV movies. So I kind of get that kind of nostalgia out of it as well, which is fun for me. But that's it. That's my watch list for this week. Other than our main course.
Yeah, so I didn't know that about Saw X. I didn't realize that was a prequel, which actually makes me kind of interested to watch that now, because I have no desire to see that movie before. But that's kind of something different.
No, it's worth a watch.
Yeah, I didn't know that was a prequel either. I mean, that kind of sparks a little bit more interest. And what you were saying on the Stephen King movies, by the way, I feel the same way. And I think a lot of it has to do with where we live. You know what I mean?
That's true.
Like the region, like just it lends very well to like being in New England and Massachusetts.
Yeah.
It just feels like when I look outside, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm in the same spot as they are right now.
Yeah, I'm looking at the same moon that Stephen King looks at. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Andrew, you have any fun things you watched this week?
Not really. I just had some rewatches, so nothing too. I mean, Hellraiser. Obviously, I watch multiple times a year, but usually around Halloween.
But just the first one?
Just the first one. I watched the Hellraiser 2 like 5 months ago, so I can probably hold off on. And then I watched Sleepy Hollow. I love that movie this time of year.
Oh, okay. That's a solid one.
It's like the same thing. You got like it gives you that nostalgia feel, and it like you're like it's the same area, time of year. You're
Big
like,
time.
Oh, all right, yeah. So it's nice, and it's a nice, easy, fun watch. Nothing too crazy. What else did I watch? I forget what it was. I started watching some freaking like crime documentary about some kid that went missing and murdered. So I can't remember what it was called, but it was interesting. I find those all very interesting. That was on, I want to say that was on Amazon Prime. I can't remember what it was, but not a horror movie, nothing like that. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I just did rewatches, nothing new.
That's good. Nice tight little watch list for the week for the boys. I know that I'm kind of like getting ready to really hunker down and start getting into my classics. I've been trying to branch out and watch some of the new stuff this year that's come out that is available to watch that I haven't seen yet, just so I can kind of get ready for the top 10, because that's going to be coming fucking real quick.
Fast, yeah.
There's a lot of stuff that I got to try and catch up on, but I do like to watch my go-tos and check out some other stuff I hadn't seen yet as well.
I'm looking forward to seeing like where everybody lands, because I think that going into this year, I wasn't too sure if there was going to be like, I don't know. I didn't know how everything was going to shake out with like the postponing of Evil Dead Rise and all that jazz. Mm-hmm. There's been some really good movies so far this year. Like in my top 5 at least, there's like I can like rest my laurels on pretty hard so far.
Yeah, there's a lot of movies that are coming out like from now until the end of the year too. Like they're not all big theatrical releases, but they're very, very like hyped up inside like the indie community. Like a lot of film festival circuits are like pushing a lot of these crazy movies that I think we're gonna all get bombarded with for the next couple months, which that's cool. But it just makes for like a busy last quarter of the year in terms of just catching up on horror movies.
Yeah, like the final push.
Yeah.
On a separate note, like I know, like I found Radio Rental because you guys were talking about it. It's great, it's awesome. But that coming back on Friday is like,
I just saw that.
Nice little like Friday the 13th starting back up. I'm pretty excited there. But I don't know if any of you guys have listened to it yet, but I can't recommend Otherworld enough. Otherworld is an unbelievable podcast. It's almost like it feels like Coast to Coast FM.
Oh,
like
nice.
So it's like it's people kind of like reaching out to the host Jack and like telling their story, and he's going into it as like not necessarily skeptical, but he's just like, just tell me, like make me want to believe you kind of thing. And he's like, who am I to like talk shit about what you just perceived, like your perceived kind of reality and everything. And they just hit like 1 year runtime, and I think there's 53 episodes at this point. It's awesome.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's really, really solid. They're all about an hour,
nice
hour and a half. Yeah, and there's some really scary stories on there of like people like, and they're like crying and stuff, like recounting these things that have happened to them. So,
jeez,
a little bit of everything.
Interesting.
Okay. Yeah, I'll have to check that one out.
Yeah, go into it with an open mind. It's a little bit of everything, and they kind of like some of them take a little bit to build up, and then when they hit you, you're like, whoa.
Yeah, some of the Radio Rental stories definitely like stuck with me and really fucking freaked me out.
For sure.
But all right, well, why don't we take a quick commercial break, and when we come back, we can talk some new French Extremity.
It's official. The critics' decision is in. Spooky World is spooktacular. Enter the new black hole. If you dare. Or the new horror house House of Wax. This year, don't miss the real Jason, Bobby Pickett, or Alice Cooper. Phone the 24-hour Spooky World hotline. 508-838-0200. That's 508-838-0200. Spooky World is just west of Boston and haunts every night from October 1st till November 1st. If you had the nerve, you'd phone 508-838-0200.
It's America's horror theme park, Spooky World. Sleepy Clovers.
Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
The new face of evil is going to scare you to death. Barrett's Haunted Mansion. It's killer this year. Then creep next door to the Abington Ale House. Barrett's Haunted Mansion. Eat, drink, and be scary. Go to bhmansion.com.
And we're back. All right, guys, we're here with just me and Andrew. This is Matt. We also have our buddy Justin McLaughlin here. And we are here tonight to talk about Pascal Lugier's Martyrs from 2008. This is a French movie, renowned as one of the most brutal of the new French extremity horror, I guess. What do you want to call it? Renaissance or whatever you use to describe it. But in the early 2000s to late 2000s, there were these just brutal French horror movies that came out and kind of set the tone. Just ultra gory, violent, unforgiving, bleak movies. And Martyrs is definitely one of the top tier films on that list. So I never thought we would talk about this movie on this show.
I'd wait till Mike and Kat were gone and be like, "Yep, we're talking about
this." Me and Andrew jumped on it, and we knew before what movie we were going to pick, Justin, that we wanted to have you on the show this week anyway. And then we kind of just picked Martyrs spontaneously.
Sure.
And then we were like, well, hopefully Justin doesn't mind watching Martyrs. We did watch it, so
yeah, I watched it.
Yep. So now, in turn, I know that like you kind of have a specific, like, would you say you have a specific type of horror movie that you?
Yeah. So
yeah,
me personally, like again, The Thing is probably my favorite movie of all time. So I really like these, creepy crawly monster flicks, stuff like that. So I definitely fall in the Walshy's Worms category when it comes to that type of thing.
Word.
But with that being said, like, there's there's a lot going on in this movie. And I loved the first half because and we'll get into like all that in a little bit. I'm not going to get into spoilers now, but my general type of horror is like, movies like The Thing, Event Horizon. Those are like really like my big favorites. And then when it comes to these, over the top brutal movies, typically not my cup of tea. But I guess I'll just why am I burying the lead here? This is the best one.
Okay.
Like when it comes to like the Hostels and Green Infernos and all that, Turistas, like this is by far the best one. There's an actual story here. There's something that you can bite into and like follow instead of just being like, yeah, we just like doing this to people. And you're like,
yeah,
what? But like, again, I won't spoil the whole movie or anything now. This has a legit story. It's shot beautifully. The girl who plays Lucy, holy shit, she can fucking act.
Yeah.
Wow. Like sold right away. Like the second you see the adult Lucy, you're like, whoa, okay. Like it's so intense. Right off the rip, it's very believable. She seems, very timid at the right parts and over the top. Like when it's necessary, it's like, it's a nice build up. So I definitely put together like a really, there's a lot of twists and turns with this movie. So, but
yeah, it's all over the place.
Again, not necessarily my cup of tea.
I do think that part of what makes this movie, like you were saying, it's shot well, it's written well, there's a good story. It's European. I know I kind of have beaten this drum quite a bit myself on the podcast about loving foreign movies, but like I don't think an American movie made as brutal and just mean-spirited and angry as this one is, ends up getting away with being renowned as a good, because I just wouldn't think it would. I don't think any American director is making it that way, if that makes sense. Like,
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, it's just it's such a stylistic thing that they have over there, where it's like you can be subjected to these kind of things, but because there's a point and a moral to the story, it's not as senseless as you're kind of you're initially gonna. It's not hostile. You know what I mean? That's just violence to just be a violent movie. You know what I mean? Like, there's no point to prove. If anything, he's saying don't go to Europe because this is gonna happen to you. If you're like, you know what I mean? So, but Martyrs is a movie I saw for the first time when I was probably 18. And I had a hard time getting through it initially because it's brutal, but it's also like the content of it is like, it's heavy. It's a lot. There's a lot of twists and turns. It kind of goes all over the place. I had a hard time following what was happening. And I also was kind of not really into the subtitle thing yet. And then I probably watched this movie 6 or 7 times now. And so I've really, over the years, digested more of the concept of it. And because there is a pretty deep meaning to what's going on. It's an insane movie, but like I said, I think the aspect of the style it's made and the story it has to tell and the way it's told it's a pretty important movie in terms of early 2000s horror. So I was glad we got to talk about this one tonight.
Yeah, I'm glad that I finally watched this.
Yeah, you said your brother was trying to get you on this one, right?
Yeah, he told me about it it was like a year or 2 ago he had mentioned it, and I was like, oh, very rare that he's like adamant about watching a movie. I mean, he told me he's like fucked up movie, but
yeah,
like, it's really good. And I was like, all right, that's right up my alley. And then I kind of forgot about it, and then you'd brought it up a couple times, and I was like, oh yeah, I forgot about that movie.
Yeah,
like you said, there is something that these foreign horror films that are just so brutal do that American films just can't replicate, and they do such a good job of, you feel such a wide range of emotions in these movies, other than just fear or disgust.
So he's very sad.
There's lots of just ups and downs. Like, the first half of this movie is extremely frantic, and then the second half is almost. I found the second half of this movie extremely calming. I don't know why, but I just found it very calming to watch.
Yeah,
maybe I'm a serial killer or something.
Yeah, I mean, just to give like a quick brief.
A queef?
A queef, just to give a queef about the movie. If I can bring up my thing, I'm getting no service down here. But basically, you have these 2 girls, one of which was like held captive as a child, and she escapes, and she befriends somebody in an orphanage that she's being kept at, or some sort of ward. And as they get older, like she's dealing with some trauma, and you get this crazy home invasion scene, kind of right off the bat. And so this movie starts off with a pretty heavy bang.
Literally.
From there you realize that she's hunting the people that she thinks did all this to her as a child. And then from there, I don't want to get too spoilery, because I think even as brutal as this movie is, I'm not one to really recommend certain movies because they're so ridiculous. Like, I'm not one to push like Irreversible or necessarily Cannibal Holocaust on everybody, but I think this movie's worth one watch if you're a real like true horror movie fan, just because it's so well done and the story is so fucking nuts. But it goes pretty hectic from there. You're dealing with some trauma that's been forced into a new character, basically. And with that new character, you kind of you can tell it doesn't take long before you realize that lady that's chasing her around is, something that's part of her as well. So, and then the whole second half of the movie, like you said, Andrew, it goes into it's an entirely different vibe. I think the second half is actually a lot harder to watch than the first half, personally.
I agree with that.
Yeah, it's dragged out
big time,
like, where you start to just really like, you're like, I need to watch something nice after this. Like,
yeah,
yeah, that's 100%
making me hurt.
Yeah, well, it's just like you get into watching just this lady get just fucking the shit
Is her
kicked out of
spirit
her.
broken?
Yeah, like literally.
Like,
So, and it's just like the whatever, and to think that like this is where that girl was as a child and had to go through something similar is really fucked up, and that there's people out there that want to hurt people like this.
Yeah.
So, Justin.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
So going into the movie, I took notes during this because like this movie I've heard about for a long time. I think I want to say it was Nick Leandro.
Oh yeah.
I want to say it was Nick that recommended this or mentioned this to me. I shouldn't say recommend. He knows this is not really my my thing, but I'm pretty sure he talked to me about this movie. God, it might be a stretch. I might be wrong on the dates. I'm pretty sure it was him about 5 years ago. Just mentioned that he had watched it. Could be completely wrong on that date. If not, it was somebody else online or something stupid. But so my thoughts going into this movie were just like, obviously, like I already said, this genre is not really my cup of tea typically. Like this branch of the horror family tree, I'm usually like, not too huge on. But so my thoughts looking like, on the outside is this is just a movie of nothing but violence and brutality, and I'm not really going to get anything out of it. I assumed it was like a Hostel, like I'm making this shocking movie for the sake of being shocking and edgy for and with no other grand purpose behind it.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very happy I was very wrong about that because, again, like I said, there's a lot to chew on here, and the way everything goes, it leaves you like there's a lot to kind of like think about and ponder. So I like that a lot. And then the other thing before I went into it, I had no idea of the story whatsoever. I really thought this was just like a shock film. Why was a remake made of this?
They made an American version.
Just for a cash grab? Is it any of the same production team, director, writer, anything like that?
No.
So, okay, so just a total cash grab for no fucking reason.
Yeah, they do that a lot with foreign movies.
Yes.
They Americanize them, and then they kind of make them they're usually a lot softer.
Yeah.
For
why are they doing that with Speak No Evil? Isn't there
They're going to do that with Speak No Evil.
Yeah.
They did it with The Vanishing from 1988. They made that in the 90s. There's been a couple others.
Yeah, I just, again, like, I was kind of confused as to, like, why they were doing it besides just a total cash grab. So that's exactly it. But during the movie, and again, I like foreign films, so it's never really been like a huge problem for me. And we also watch everything with subtitles on.
Yep, me too.
Like I think the only thing we don't do is like I won't watch the UFC fights with them on because it's so delayed. Yeah. And then NFL games, I'm like, I don't care. Like most of the time, it's Tony Romo now commentating on the shitty Patriots. So
yeah,
and I can't. Yeah, he's just drunk in the booth, just talking. But during the movie, much stronger background than I expected. Like the way the movie starts and seeing like the whole buildup, like you were just mentioning. And then my God, I had really no way, like I really didn't know anything about like the whole what I assumed to be a monster initially. Like, and then it kind of just keeps progressing, and then I'm just like, oh, this is 100% like a built-in trauma for her.
Yeah,
of just like a trauma device of this like mangled, gnarled, extremely like emaciated woman that's like it's following her around and
her
beating the shit out of her. Yep, 100%. And then when you get that,
you realize that she left someone behind. Yeah,
it's awesome. So as I was going, like I was like, all right, what is this setting up for? Like when they were doing like the when we were starting to kind of get like more tidbits of her while she was in that like orphanage or ward or whatever they have over there. I wrote, is this setting up for like a spit on your grave type revenge plot?
Yeah,
like 100%. Yes. Because then when you get to that, when things start ramping, this is what I guess getting into spoiler territory. Because this movie,
that's okay. Yeah,
it builds up for like 10 minutes, and then you're just on.
You're in it.
Fucking downslope forever. Like, and then you get into the house, and my God, it is just unbelievable. Like she's just ripping through this family so fast, and I was like, "Woo, baby!" Like And by the time like all that ends, and like you're seeing that, like, you're seeing the monster like attack her while she's waiting for while Lucy's waiting for Anna to show back up to the house. I was like, wow, what a ride. That movie was crazy. Dude, there's an hour left of
Yeah,
the movie.
I
I was like,
25
what
minutes
the
in.
fuck, dude?
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, hang on. And then, like, obviously, this is where things kind of like the scares in the orphanage of um, again, what is her guilt, but that monster on the foot of her bed, and you're just seeing like the whites of the eyes and like the outline of the hair. I thought that was really, really cool. The arm like dragging underneath the bed real quick when she looks down. I was like, ooh, baby, like, what is this? Like, I thought those were really, really scary. Like, more of like I guess a traditional horror movie, like scare. Like, I was like,
Yeah.
that's spooky as fuck. And then obviously the brutality kind of gets crazy. That hallway scene in the beginning when it's the brother and the sister chasing each other, and you just think it's like a dude chasing just another girl, and you're like, man, you're setting me up for another fucking like. I thought that was pretty good. Like the way the camera was just behind them, and she's just running, and it sounds like she's like in actual panic. This movie kind of does keep throwing curveballs at you like that.
Yeah, it keeps you it's a tense movie. It keeps you constantly just like on edge. And it's funny you mentioned like about the woman at the foot of the bed and how it's actually like creepy. So when all these French movies first came out, like they weren't like, you look at like Trouble Every Day and Irreversible and High Tension and like Frontiers. There's a few more off the top of my head. I can't remember them. Inside is one of them. They're violent. They're angry. They're aggressive. They're extremely bleak, but they're not necessarily scary movies. They're just really hard to watch. This is the one that actually kind of dipped its toes into being a horror movie. That's why I think when I think of like the French movies, this was the one that I was more likely to opt for because it actually does have horror elements to it. That whole sequence of her being attacked by the woman is insane.
It's horrifying.
Yeah, it's a lot, and it's unrelenting. And then that's why you have this like complete tonal shift where Anna is the one who kind of puts herself in the shoes of what Lucy had to go through. And it's like you get through watching her and she's basically just being, starved and beaten and this, that, and the other thing. And you get through all the way to the end and you see what they do to her entirely, completely, finally, and then all for nothing. And like that's why it's a martyr. Like it's just like you're doing all of this, you're putting yourself through this to prove a point, but it's like, what is the point? Like, so it had a very tongue-in-cheek way of doing it, but this movie, it bullies its main characters just as hard, if not harder, as it bullies you watching it, because you go through all of it with them and then you're like, oh my god. Like that, the ending with the queen lady, I guess, or whatever you want to call her,
Mademoiselle.
Yeah. That always, every time that scene happens where she ends up just shooting herself, and just like, oh, what a fucking miserable ending to the movie. It was funny when I texted you, Justin, that this was the movie we wanted to do this week. I was curious what your initial reaction was. I didn't know if you were going to be like, dude.
So what's funny is when you texted me that when you texted me like, hey, we want to have you on the pod, I was like, oh, sick. And I was like with Audra, I was like, yeah, I was like, or I was at work and I texted Audra like, she had just called me, however that worked out. I was like, oh, I'm going to be on like America's Hometown this week. And then she was just like, do you know what you're covering yet? And I was like, no, I'll probably find out later. And then she goes, I bet it's Martyrs or something fucked up. She was
oh,
like,
really?
Yeah, she goes, I guarantee Matt's going to fuck with you. And I was like, because like we've already had conversations about like, I'm like, yeah, these movies make me feel bad. Like every time it's a child or a woman getting hurt, I'm like, I'm down in the dumps, bro. Like I just, this is brutal. But again, like this is something else, man. Like, I'm curious on both of your takes on like I guess the ending itself, like the way everything kind of transpires, and then like how, like what both of you think about like the total. I know Matt, you just touched on a little bit, but that total tonal shift that happens because it is you go from brutal to brutal, but you are absolutely turning a fucking page when that happens.
It's this is a movie. This is one of the first time I saw this movie. Like I said, I was like 18 years old, and I don't think I appreciated what it was that first time. It wasn't until like the third time I've seen it that, and it wasn't like I watched it like the next week. It's been like I watch it every like 3-4 years. I've come back to it, and it's just because I just see it on like Tubi or like whatever. I'm like, oh, I haven't watched this in a long time, and then I watched it twice this year, including like watching it for this. And yeah, it's just like it's a devastating movie. I don't think there's a lot of movies other than like really brutal like war movies that are able to kind of, or like there's like dramas and stuff that are really sad that you could watch.
Yeah, All
But,
Quiet
like,
on the Western Front.
Yeah, or just like, you know what I mean? There's a lot of like renowned like just sad movies that people know about. But like I think in terms of just like you're not going to watch a lot of horror movies that are going to actually make you feel so like there's like despair that comes with watching this movie. A lot of people are like, yeah, it's a one and done for me, which is understandable. And that was it for me for like a long time. But after I came back to it a couple of times, I was like, actually, this is it's just like, there's something about it that I find incredibly fascinating in how it was made and how well the story is told. It's just gritty as fuck. You have to kind of just know that that's what you're going to be getting into.
Yeah, I think the way you kind of described it earlier too. It's the way it's shot, man. It's the way it's shot. It's written. It's acted. I think that is the only thing that will ever make me want to watch this again.
Yeah,
because you are in a pit after this movie's over, dude. Like, there's nothing really good that happens for
there's
like
not
2 hours. It's brutal.
There's not a single good thing in this movie that happens, and it's like, it is funny because, like I said, that second time you watch it, you're actually like, oh, because you know what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
So when it's an interesting thing to watch it back and just to kind of have that like that foresight of knowing this is all going to happen to her, and you just want to be like, just go away, like get out of there. Just trust me. So I think it actually makes it that much more upsetting to watch that second time or whatever after.
Yeah, because the whole time you're watching the second half of this movie, you're like waiting for her to escape or save herself, but she's pretty much just accepts her fate and is like, yeah, I'm gonna die and I'm just gonna fucking take it easy and just go with it. And she's just so calm the whole time towards the end of it. Like, she fights it for like the first, however long that takes. I mean, how many years? I mean, is it years that she's down there? Like, you have no idea the concept of how long.
There's no concept of time.
But it feels like it has to be years because she's just so beaten down and just like, you know what? You can skin me and I'm not even going to really react to it.
And that's literally what happens.
Yeah, it's just disgusting.
Yeah.
Something, honestly, Andrew, when you were just talking about that just there, I completely forgot about an entire aspect of this movie that just because of what happens specifically to Lucy and Anna, you almost step it. I forgot that there was that fucking lady chained up in the basement with that metal shit on her, dude, until like right now.
The bathtub scene with that is absolutely intense. When she's ripping that metal plate out of her head, I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah,
dude. Yeah.
That was the most uncomfortable I was during that.
That's the woman that she left behind.
Is that the same lady?
Yeah.
No fucking way. I didn't even know that.
But she has this guilty conscience concept of what she thinks that person is.
But instead, they're just like, yep, she's just chilling down here.
Yeah. And it's like she's thinking that lady's trying to kill her when it's really she's harming herself every time. And eventually she goes too far.
See, I didn't even realize that. I just thought that was just another one of their victims. Andrew, on what you said though, that bathtub scene. Initially, I was like, "Oh, pulling the staples out of your head, that's gross." I
Yeah.
don't think it really bothered me until the slow trickle of blood started to like pool out of those, and then it just starts coming faster and faster and faster. I think it's because of how realistic that looks. It's not just like blood splatter like every other movie does. It's that flow, and I was like, I can't fucking deal with this. That's the one part where I was like, I'm gonna throw up.
And it's also the fact too, like if you've ever had like a deep wound or something and you submerge it in water, that hurts like a motherfucker.
Yes.
And this lady has giant holes in her body, essentially. She's getting into this bathtub, and I'm like, that's gotta hurt so bad. That's gonna be the most painful thing.
She's probably never been in water in years.
Yeah. So I think this is kind of where I can unleash a little bit on this, like, and fucking joke around. Anna is so frustrating after Lucy dies because she obviously goes to the basement, finds this person, gets her back upstairs, starts like, trying to like, put isopropyl alcohol on her wounds and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And be like, I got to try to help you. Yeah. I'm like, bro, pick up the phone, call 911, and then fucking deuces out of there. Just peace out. And
at that point, I'd rather be in jail for whatever they're going to put you in jail for than be in that jail down.
Right. And like, I was like, why? Like, any human being that sees that, I don't care how bad or like malicious they are, for the most part, they're going to look at that and be like, yeah, I got to call someone that's not me. Like, it's like, I'm like, what do you think you're going to do for this lady for like the rest of your life? She's been metal underwear, ripped to shreds. And like, you're just like, get in the tub. I drew you a warm bath.
Yeah.
It's okay. My God.
Yeah, let's get you cleaned up.
But with that being said, like the water fucking probably killed all of her cuts. And I was like, what's next? Is she going to like rub her in salt and vinegar chips and be like fucking like,
Yeah.
Get some gauze or something, like wrap that shit up. Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
And I don't think you should be taking that thing off of her head. You're not a doctor. Like if you get stabbed with something, you're not supposed to pull it out. You're supposed to leave it in. If you have something stabbed through your skull, you're probably not supposed to get someone just pry it out with like a fucking pry bar. Oh God.
And I think that kind of adds to the whole thing though, of like them feeling like dumb kids. Like Lucy obviously is out for revenge, but like the way she does everything is like, you're like, yeah, you have no bearing on like what's going to work or not in this situation. You're just out for that revenge.
Yeah.
She's great. She's a really great actress. Anna, I thought was a little bit under her, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I almost wonder what the movie would be like if if those two actors just switched roles.
The roles were reversed.
Yeah. I'm curious.
Well, I think Lucy's character is so much more intent over the top.
Which is fucked to say after knowing what happens to like Anna's character, you know what I mean?
Right. But I think that just is her character. She's much more reserved. Mm-hmm. And like, I mean, that scene, like you said, the bathtub, and then you have the reveal of her getting unveiled to be skinned entirely except for her face and hung on that like fucking weird contraption thing, like just like up, like basically hanging by like her hands, and it's your jaw drops when you see it for the first time because you're just like, oh my god, dude, like because you're like, how much worse? Because it's just you're watching her just get like brutalized for 35 minutes. And you're like, how much worse is this gonna get? And then you find out, and you're like, wow. So it's just miserable.
I think like in that part though, like when obviously you're watching like the lead up to right before she gets skinned.
Yeah.
There is that one moment, like I know we were talking about how like she fought back a little bit, but there's that one moment where she lands that solid right hook on the dude, like the face. And I gotta give it to Audra, dude, although she was like making fun of me about this. And by the way, she watched this whole fucking movie with me.
Oh yeah.
She fucking trooped through it and was like, I'm not crazy about this one. But she really likes Speak No Evil.
Yeah.
But,
that one was, I thought that was that one affected me more than this one did.
I think she liked how, like, I don't know. I feel like, I don't know. I haven't watched that one, but the way she described it to me was like, it just felt like it was like a quick wrap up. Whereas this one, there's really, this does not, there's no wrap up, dude. It just keeps going until the credits roll. And then the credits are even brutal too, because it's showing just Lucy and Anna playing as children. And you're like, oh, fantastic. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, that's why these new French extremity movies, they're mean.
Yeah.
Like there's nothing like them. Like they really are all so specifically just unrelenting and fucking, they bully the shit out of you. But I mean, I think that's what I have to say about it. If you haven't seen it and you're a horror fan, you want to watch something, everyone's like, I want to watch something fucking crazy. I'm like, okay, watch Martyrs. Like,
yeah.
The people that were doing all this stuff that were all involved, there was essentially a cult.
Yeah.
Right? They were a cult that was trying to figure out like what happens when you die. So basically, to me, like this movie is like a take on religion, how the lengths that people will go to prove their faith.
Yeah.
It's pretty much anything. This is obviously a little bit more extreme, but this is no different than going to war and killing people for your
hyperbolic for sure. But yeah.
So like I think that scene at the end, especially when Anna's, she's fucking postured up in that thing, and then they move her to like the see-through bathtub, whatever the hell.
Yeah.
It is, where they're just, again, like she's freshly skinned and they're just submerging her in water.
And she's so calm.
And like Mademoiselle just talks to her and like everything, and then obviously we all know what happens with her, just like, hey, like Etienne, do you know, like what do you think happens when you die? And he's like, I have no idea. And she's like, keep doubting, and then just boom. You're like, whoa, like
yeah.
Like, what did she say to her? You know what I mean? There's all that level of like, I think that's what makes me.
Part of it was they had never had someone who just accepted this whole process. And this Anna is the first person to actually just accept it. And so that's why that's Martyr, you know what I mean? That's where you get it from. Mm-hmm. And they're like, so you go through all of this and this is what it's for. And then she shoots herself. So you're like, dude.
Maybe she lied to her too and told her that it was something great, so she'd kill herself.
Why? Yeah,
you don't know what she says to her.
I thought I was like,
told her you're a bitch, like 55.
You suck. It would be sweet if it was like, something like that, where she was like that final revenge. She was like, I just watched Lucy do it to him, so fuck you. I'm gonna tell you that, like, oh yeah, there's something. It's gonna be so nice. Like, all you need to do is fucking kill yourself. And all the rest of these fools are never going to see what you're going to see. Then she's like, nice. And just goes in there and, like blasts away. I'm like, that would be kind of cool. Because then at the end, you obviously see her kind of lying back in that tub with that weird, like, cosmic view in her eyes. The scene where all those nice, like, Rolls Royces and Jaguars and everything, like all these British cars, or, European cars, rather, come rolling up that driveway super fast.
Yeah.
And they're all like shaking the main torturers, like the couple that were doing all that. They're like shaking their hands and stuff like that, being like, wow, congratulations. But it's like, it's ranging from like 20-year-olds to like super old fucks.
Yeah.
And you're like, how long have they been doing this? Because like, it's crazy.
Exactly.
They're all blatantly in. They all know exactly why they're there. And it seems like there's almost 50 people in that house. So I mean, it's excellent, man. It really like leaves you kind of wanting more. Question for you guys too, because I know you both like Hellraiser, and Andrew, you mentioned that. Did you just rewatch it?
Yeah.
I kind of feel like, especially after like the skinning scene happened, and then like just kind of the way the basement is set up with all the dark, eerie corners, I was getting super vibes of just the first Hellraiser. Like almost how like the attic is up there, and then obviously like all the Cenobites and everything like that. It just feels like it's, I don't know. I just got the same vibe out of it, where you're like, this is just gross to look at, but I really kind of can't turn away here.
Yeah, pretty much like that attic scene in Hellraiser when he's just like disgusting, like skinless.
Yeah, it's the skinless people.
I mean, I still don't think there's better special effects than that, though.
Oh yeah,
one of my favorite special effects scenes.
Special effects on this were really good as well too, like all the blood, gore. It really is solid, and it really does look like they fucking broke her nose. And the scene I'm talking about, where it's like, it seems like what I would guess would be months of her just having like that huge bruise right on her nose. Yeah, wild stuff.
Yeah, and I did specifically like how they did the skinning scene. Like, they didn't really show you anything.
Mm-hmm. No.
I think honestly,
please don't.
You don't need to.
And it honestly, it almost made it worse though.
Yeah.
Because like,
well, that's why I mean that reveal.
yeah, you know what's happening. Because like the second they start it, you're like, what are they giving her back surgery?
Yeah.
And then they like keep going, and I'm like, what? I was like,
Yeah,
it seems too
I want
long.
to know the reasoning why they left her face though. Like you didn't
Just
skin that. Like what's the? She just looked like the chick from Ex Machina. I was like, oh, you're like a robot. with
Yeah.
skin face and nothing else.
Fuck, that's a good movie too.
All right. Well, I think that's got to pretty much wrap it up here, boys.
Put a bow on this.
Yeah, put a bow on it. Justin, thanks for being a trooper on this one, buddy.
Oh, absolutely.
I there was part of me that was like, he's gonna just say no.
So
like, I'm not watching that
again, like Audra called it. She was like, 100% this is the movie that they're doing, and Matt's doing this to fuck with you. And I was like, I don't know. And then after I texted her, I was like, it's Martyrs. She was just like, well, I've been excited to watch this movie. And I was like, she hated it, by the way. She there's aspects that she liked, but she was like, this sucked. And I was like, yeah. So after, she's like, I'm continuing my rewatch of The Sopranos because it's like a familiar favorite for her. And I was like, I get it. But yeah, it was brutal. Definitely better than I expected, though. Good. So out of all those fucking movies, it's the one that I can actually be like, no, it's good. I'm just not going to recommend this to anybody unless you're like, really, no, give me something fucking crazy. And then I'll be like, all right, I got a film for you.
Well, I'm glad that it wasn't, like, obviously it's a rough watch, but I'm glad you weren't like fucking totally beside yourself. No, and again, it was good. It was nice talking to you guys about it too, because I feel like I'm not in the camp of even liking these movies, and like it was, I actually was like impressed. Like this was a really good movie. The one note I did like want to get to real quick, it's super quick. Tubi plays ads for me because I don't pay for Tubi. Yeah, me too. Super intense scenes kept happening, and then they would go to the 99 Double Dare hot dog ad from the 99 restaurants, and they would just be like, we double dare you to eat 2 hot dogs. And I was like, what the fuck, dude? It was just taking me out of it so fast because the ads just go. Like they put that little 4-second timer, and then you're there. So that was the one thing that I was like, I just watched a little girl get shotgunned in the back. And they played that fucking ad like right away. I was like, that'll take the wind out of your sails.
A factory reset in the middle of a brutal. Hot dogs. That's what I'm talking about.
Jesus Christ.
Honestly, if there's going to be a movie that you get a couple of little breaths of fresh air from, it's probably should be this one.
Oh yeah, I probably paused it and like did something else every 20 minutes. I would go like either have a cigarette or just like snap. I was like, I just need to like take a minute.
That's a good call. So I watched this and then had to go work the Patriots game on Sunday. So I got 2 brutal massacres right after another.
Oh, there you go. I don't know which one was worse.
Yeah. At least this movie's fake.
Yeah.
At least we're not gonna have to relive it every Sunday. So
yeah. Well, guys, thanks for having me. Like again, anytime. It's a ton of fun.
It was a pleasure, Justin. Always fun.
And then, by the way, just as someone who's attending this, buy tickets to
Hometown
the convention, man.
Hometown Haunts and Hops at Mayflower Brewing Company.
It's like
October 28th.
It's like $5 for the basic ticket. What's going on?
It's going to be a banger.
Wouldn't you?
Yeah. Let's get in there. I think we got a good little. We're starting to pick up some pace, so
perfect.
It's looking good. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm excited, but I've been telling everybody because I was like, this is like a solid fucking thing that's happening in town. Let's go.
Yep. We have the Mayflower's doing a punk rock market on Sunday. They're going to have some promotion there, and then we obviously, like I said, we have our trivia a week on Thursday the 19th at Mayflower as well.
We're going to try to make it out to this one. I owe Nick a team member, so
yeah, get a little crew going. It'll be fun
for sure. I think it's going to be me, Nick, and Audra. We'll see if we can get somebody else to do.
Oh yeah!
All right, guys. Thanks again,
boys. Thank you, guys. We'll see you. Or
good evening.
Or speak to you soon. Goodbye. Good evening.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, it's Mike from America's Hometown Horror, and I want to say thanks again for listening to another episode of our show. If you're interested in more local Plymouth podcasts, I'd highly recommend you check out the shows from our friends over on the Inebriart Podcast Network. In addition to America's Hometown Horror, you can find shows from Inebriart, the Old Colony Cast, Bar Talk, Theme Park Legends, and Retro Redoctopus, so head on over and give them a listen.